welcome to the session. On behalf of Literary Club of IIM Calcutta, I welcome Acharya Prashant ji to this session. Today we are very lucky to have him with us. I'm sure he needs no introduction. From being an acclaimed Vedanta exegete to a national best-selling author of over 80 books, he is a powerful voice of socio-spiritual awakening in today's world. Today, more than tens of millions of people, especially the youth, get inspired daily by Acharya Prashant ji. Through his direct contact with people and through his various internet-based channels, he continues to bring clarity to all. Sir, it's an honor to have you with us and to have you address our institute. On behalf of the Literary Club of IIM Calcutta, we thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before I hand it over to Dr. Chatterjee to coordinate the session, I have an initial question for you.
Sure.
Since we are the literary club here and since you have long been into this genre, I had a question like, have the classic and traditional form of stories, which are very slow paced, where the character development was given enough time, have they lost its value in today's time? Because what a general observation is that books or films which have a very shallow plot seem to gain mass popularity amongst a lot of people. So what can we do to bring the traditional forms back?
See, what you are seeing is the outcome of a certain philosophy of life. And the philosophy is that everything in the world exists only in a utilitarian way. The thing that comes to me must have a utility, and that too a very material utility. So if there is a book that comes to me, it should very quickly tell me of the thing that it is trying to present as useful. So the book then becomes nothing more than a medium, a road that is taking you to some useful, pleasurable destination. Now, when it is only the destination that matters, who wants the road to be long and convoluted? You want to reach there as early as possible. You want to take a flight. Therefore, character development and slow pace of the narrative, they rather become a nuisance to the reader or the watcher. People are not watching movies or reading books or doing anything in life for the sake of the higher pleasure or the joy that reading itself, watching itself, the process itself gives to you. Today books are being written in the PPT format, so there are bullet points. You do not want to enjoy the beauty of language. You do not want to have, let's say, an 800-page volume in your hands in which paragraphs run for 4 pages, 6 pages, and sentences run for 10 or 12 lines. Nobody wants to have that kind of patience, and it is not really then a crisis or shortage of patience in itself. It is a problem with the philosophy of this age. The book has come to me, and my central god is consumption. I want to hustle through life. I want to reach some place very, very quickly where I can make fast bucks, where I can get to consume all the goodies of life. And that's the only thing that matters to me. The pleasure of reading does not matter. So now the book has to become subservient to the lust for consumption. If the book has to exist, it has to cater to the same lust. Otherwise, it cannot exist, because that lust today is God. So that's the reason why, if you visit bookstores, what you see is caricature in the name of literature. And if you look at the best selling charts or racks, they are all full of caricatures. Self-help, somebody is teaching you to make money, somebody is peddling you superstition, this, that. Even the quality of language has fallen, not merely the quality of content. Let alone knowing what life is. The writers and the actors and the script writers of today do not even know what good language is. Good Hindi, good English, good Bengali, whatever. So it's an overall crisis in which nothing matters. You might be beautiful at language, and still you might be found starving somewhere. Starving both in the financial and in the psychological sense. You might gain very little recognition. So that's what, to look at the world as something to be consumed. That's the ideal of this age. You exist to eat as much as possible. That's what is being taught to us in our education, in our upbringing, and by our environment. The purpose of life is to stuff your stomach and your mind. And that's all. Poetry has almost died, because it is useless. People want things to be useful. Look at the quality of the songs, the lyrics that you have today. Not that we had particularly high quality stuff 2 or 3 decades back, but even compared to the 90s or the 80s, songwriting has plummeted to unimaginable depths. That's the philosophy of this age. That's not accidental. That's what I want to point at. I would be glad, and that goes out to all, to converse, to have interactions. So when I say something, if there is something that you want to say in reply, I would be glad to have it, and that's how I also feel more engaged.
Yes, I don't have a follow-up question. Just wanted to thank you for the response.
Sure.
If anyone else has a question.
Greetings and namaste, Acharya. So my name is Arunika. I am a second year student here at IIM Calcutta. I'm a PhD student. And my follow-up question is, how can we break this cycle of consumption? How can we start thinking differently? Because as you rightly pointed out, even our education system is structured in a way that even if we don't want to move towards that philosophy, we are pushed towards that, we are forced towards that. So how can we break that cycle?
See, even the consumption ideal exists to please you. Human beings are pleasure loving, right? And it is not ordinary pleasure that succeeds in pleasing us. So no problem going for pleasure or happiness or their various cousins. But question has to be asked whether the attempt is yielding results. And when that question is asked, then there is immediate change of course. Nobody eats just for the sake of eating, and I'm talking of eating in the psychological sense. Nobody consumes just to consume. We want to ingratiate ourselves. We want to feel fulfilled. There is a certain hollowness within each human being, a certain loneliness, an incompleteness, a meaninglessness. That's what we want to address through consumption. Now, somebody needs to courageously and compassionately keep raising the question, is our inner void really being filled by the methods we are adopting? We are seeking to fill our lives with goods, gadgets, furniture, vacations, relationships, sex, power, information. That's what is filling up our lives. We are doing that so that we may feel a little less discontented. But are contentment levels really rising, or is the man of today actually worse off than his fathers and forefathers when it comes to inner fulfillment? If you look at the mental disease epidemic, what does it suggest? We have so much today to consume. We are consuming many times of everything: electricity, material, minerals, waters, animal flesh, than we used to, let's say 3, 4, 5 decades back. We have obliterated thousands and thousands of species in our lust to stuff ourselves up. And we are doing that every day. But are we reaching somewhere? Look at the levels of anxiety in the common person on the road. Look at the instances of depression and other kinds of mental issues. Neurosis is at an all-time high, isn't it? So if consumption is there to appease the mind or bring peace to the mind, is consumption really succeeding? That's the question to be asked. And when you ask the question, then at least a few people who can think, who like to reflect and go into the depths of matters, would say, no, this route is not working for us. And if it is not working, let's try something else. Let's see what else in life can serve us delight. Right? How about sitting peacefully a little more? How about the delight that poetry gives you? How about love? How about creativity? Right? How about the various art forms? How about purposeless movement, let's say just for a period of 10 or 20 days? How about giving selflessly? Maybe these are the things that would succeed more when it comes to addressing the inner incompleteness. No? How about wisdom literature? How about Vedanta? How about the songs of the sages? Why not try these out rather? So, the moment this experiment is done, and the moment there is a comparison, the scales will tilt. But for a comparison to be made, first of all, somebody has to serve an alternative, no? So we require a few courageous young men and women to come forward and serve us a few alternatives. And if those alternatives are not present, then mankind has no option but to keep hurtling down that same slippery slope of consumption, where you consume and you do not feel fulfilled, so you consume even more, hoping that maybe more consumption can succeed in fulfilling you. It's a slippery slope, and it simply destroys your life. You try to give a meaning, a purpose to your life by way of accumulation and consumption, and this way cannot succeed. So we require people to come up with something else, and believe me, the ground is ready, the soil is fertile, the time is ripe. People are waiting. Come up with a heartful, authentic, credible alternative, and people will join you. Because deep within somewhere we all are fed up of this nonsense called life we are being forced to live. The methods, the institutions, the structures, the ways, the culture, all this is just so nauseating. We want an alternative, but somebody has to make a start.
Thank you, Acharya, for that answer. I just have two follow-up questions on that. First is, when you say that we should look at our ancestors, they were more content. My question is, to what extent should we use the frame of past in order to judge our present? What is the extent to which we should use that? Is it correct to use that point of reference in the past to judge the present? And the second question is related to how you said that we need somebody to take the leadership to bring the change. The problem is that often people have the right substance in mind, but they fall prey to the processes. Just to give a very random example, we had the anti-corruption movement a few years ago, and that converted into a large political party that we see today. The substance was right, the intention was right, but somehow all of that got lost in the process. So, how do we make sure that doesn't happen?
Okay, one by one. The first one said, to what extent should we use the past as a metric, as a benchmark for comparison? See, the purpose of life is betterment, improvement. You want to learn and grow each passing day, and ultimately be liberated of everything that's not worth keeping, right? That's how life is, and that's how life ought to be spent, in learning and freeing oneself of bondages. And life is time. Life, as we know it, is a series of moments. So obviously a comparison with the past has to be made. How do you know that you are better off today? How do you know you are moving in the right direction? So you need to look at yourself as you were a while back and ask yourself, am I any better off? So in that sense, comparison with the past is not only useful but actually necessary. Because if you do not look at the past, if you do not draw the right lessons from there, the punishment might be that you will repeat your past, and the past will become the future. No? For life to be new and fresh, for something creative and groundbreaking to happen, you must learn from your mistakes and be better than your former self. That's the only way one can improve. Or you could alternately say that one can look at herself as one is right now and say, this is what I do not want to be. There are things in my personality, in my mind, in my beliefs, value system that I want to expunge, and I therefore move ahead in a way that drops and renounces. You could say that. But even if you put it that way, then the stuff that you have today, that you want to drop tomorrow, is the stuff that you have carried over to today from yesterday. Have you not? So even looking at the self as it is in this moment is much the same as liberating yourself of the past. Because that which you call as your present self, as your current self, is nothing but a residue from the past. The stream of time has carried it ahead from yesteryears to today. So you could either say, I want to liberate myself of the past, or you could say, I want to liberate myself of my follies, limitations, weaknesses, bondages as they are today. It's much the same thing. So the past is indeed useful. Now the next thing you said that even if we are well-meaning citizens who want to fight against, let's say, issues like corruption, and somebody does start an authentic movement, still over time there is a possibility that it can lose its meaning and get mainstreamed into the same flow of corruption and vindictiveness and lust for power and other things. Yes, that can happen. So that's the reason why there must not only be one movement, but a series of several movements. We require not just one seed to sprout and flower, we require an entire nursery. You see, you cannot place very tight constraints on the forces of goodness. We allow the forces of evil to do whatever they please, and they get away precisely because they are forces of evil. They are supposed to be evil, so they are supposed to make mistakes. If they are corrupted, that's in their DNA. So we kind of forgive them, or we accept that as a rule of nature. Let's say there are several corrupt political parties, and you know very well of their corrupt deeds and transactions, and it is almost every day that news regarding their venal dealings keep surfacing. And even as those news articles surface, it does not bother us too much because they are supposed to be corrupt. That's a mainstream political party. Obviously it's going to be corrupt. But when it comes to a person or an institution that started off as something better, something higher or cleaner, then we raise our expectations just too high. Now that might be self-defeating, because ultimately even an urge to clean up is arising from the same filthy society, right? So even the cleanup process is bound to contain some impurities. They ought to be understood and probably even accommodated. Also, one need not give up hope too soon. Filth has accumulated over a large period of time. Cleaning up won't happen in an instant. That too is going to be a long process. It was not in 1757 or 1857 that India lost her independence, right? It was due to a long period of neglect of basics that we got colonized. That period extended for several centuries, right? A lot of things were happening in the religious domain, cultural domain, scientific domain, educational domain, that ultimately led to the fall of this huge subcontinent to much smaller nations from Europe. But once the fall happened, it was unrealistic to expect that now freedom can dawn in the blink of an eye. So then you required something like 200 years of incessant political and revolutionary activity to bring just political freedom to India. And other kinds of freedoms have still not come to us in the way they must. Why? Because the process of slavery itself extended over several centuries. So freedom too will take time. We are right now in the middle of the process of freedom, and in this process the political freedom has come to us and other freedoms are still pending. Similarly, the corruption thing that you are talking of, when you are talking of cleaning up, you have to ask yourself, how exactly do you find yourself drenched in so much of filth? And think of the centuries that have brought us to this kind of weary state. So if one political party fails in transforming the political landscape, then another one must come up. And you have to look at the whole thing in perspective. It's not a matter of months or 2 years, 4 years. It will take time. And if you are hungry for change, as you must be, if you want to reduce the time that the process will take, then you must with all zeal and energy put in your own bit. Only then the process can be accelerated. But let there be no false hopes. Bad politics is essentially arising from a bad collective mind. The politician is corrupt because the population is corrupt, right? And all corruption is fundamentally spiritual. It is a lack of proper spiritual foundation to common life that is causing corruption in all spheres of human activity. So when a reformation indeed does come, it will be a reformation not only in our politics, but also in our education, also in our movies, our literature, our politics, our everything, our relationships. It will be a fundamental change in who we are as a people. And if this kind of a cataclysmic change is to be brought about, let's be patient. Let's be patient with a desperate vigor. When it comes to action, we must act vigorously. When it comes to results, we must want them desperately. But equally, we must know that what we are asking for is something very big, and therefore it's definitely going to take time.
Thank you, Acharya. That's all from my side.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, hello Acharya. I am Amal Surendra. So, my question is that I think more and more people nowadays are realizing the current predicament that they're in, as you were describing. And I think they realize that they need more in life than what their current life offers. But there are also many false sources, out there that claim to offer enlightenment to people. So how does a common person or like a common, possibly gullible mind seeking a change in life differentiate from the good channels, differentiate the good channels from the bad?
Channels in which domain? Do you have something particular in mind?
I don't have a particular. It can be, I think, anything. It can be in terms of be it medicine or literature or just anything general about their lives. So everyone has different things they want to improve about themselves, and they seek different channels. And I think nowadays the options are plenty. So how does one go about recognizing what is right for them?
I think we ought to be a little more loving towards ourselves. No, we need the right kind of selfishness. You said medicine. Somebody is offering you medicine. Obviously, you must be in the best position to judge whether the medicine is working, whether it's worth anything. No? How is it possible that somebody gets away selling you trash in the name of treatment? The results are on you, the impact is upon you. So you know what is happening, you know what you experienced, what you became, what and how much you had to pay up in the entire process. You know what you gave and what you got. So how is it possible that people are being conned so easily? Somebody tells you, I have made a great movie, come and watch it. You go there, you are the recipient of the visuals and the sounds and the entire experience. Who but you can for sure declare what the movie is worth for? How is it possible that you emerge from a third-rate movie and you do not know how you felt about it? But we do see all kinds of stupid movies succeeding at the box office. 300 crores, 600 crores, 1000 crores. We see all kinds of rubbish succeeding in the name of literature. National bestseller, international bestseller, lakh copies sold, 2 lakh copies sold, 10 lakh copies sold, and that fellow is peddling nonsense of the worst kind. Trash in the name of philosophy, superstition in the name of spirituality, and still the fellow is succeeding. Do we care for ourselves? When I'm reading something, am I asking myself, what is the impact this is having on me? Am I any better off by consuming this literature or this person or this medicine or whatever it is? There is so much that the world serves up for our consumption, and extracts a price from us. No, nobody gives us anything for free. When you take that in, are you asking yourself, what did I get out of it? Or are we so unthinking and so insensitive towards ourselves that we just don't bother? Let's say you have been called to a party. You went to the party. You spent a fair amount dressing up and doing all the stuff that is needed. And for 6 hours you were there consuming the loud blaring music and the booze and the inebriating visuals. The entire atmosphere was designed to pull you down in terms of your consciousness. Is it not important that when you return, you ask yourself, what was the whole thing about? What did I get out of it? Do we take stock? Do we pause to reflect? Or next morning, when you get up with a heavy hangover, you just carry on as if nothing has happened, as if those 6 or 8 hours never existed in your life in the first place. You invested 6 hours there, you invested your money there. Must you now not ask yourself, what did I get out of that? And if you do not ask that question, then you will repeat that experience, because that experience is mainstream. That experience is being sold very aggressively by the culture and the market. Are you getting it? You are enrolled in a course. You are enrolled in a relationship. You set out for a pilgrimage. You say, I'm hanging out somewhere with my buddies. Must there not be a certain self-awareness? What am I doing to myself? What is this experience giving to me? And I'm, yes, talking of a certain selfishness and calculativeness. You have one life and you have a limited number of moments. Must you not calculate where those limited number of moments are disappearing into? And time can just fly away. You will think you are doing something worthwhile, and meanwhile the clock is ticking. The clock has no special consideration for you. Take an example. I hope we are together till this point.
Yeah, sir.
Take an example. Let's say there is an elevator, right? And you have to go from the first floor till the 8th. And instead you take the stairs, right? And your friend takes the lift. All the time when you are climbing up the stairs, how do you feel? Do you feel unemployed, free, doing nothing, purposeless? No. When you are going up the stairs, you feel very purposeful. You feel as if you are doing something important, right? Not only are you doing something important, you are also investing a lot of energy in it. You can even start to pat yourself on the back for taking up a daunting challenge. I have to climb my way up to the 8th floor. And you will feel very engaged. You will feel as if something important is happening in life. And indeed, something that saps your energy and takes away your entire attention is definitely happening. It's not easy to quickly go up till the 8th floor. And when you do reach there, what do you find? You find that your friend is already there and has been waiting since a few minutes now. Right? That's the worth of all your effort. Somebody who didn't take the wrong route reached there way before you and with far less effort. But we keep just struggling through life thinking that the staircase is the only way to rise. Why? Because the staircase is probably the thing that everybody is taking. There are lots of people there. It's a hypothetical example. I know very well that if there is an elevator and a staircase, nobody would take the staircase. But just consider the example for what it points towards.
But won't we, as people, won't we also look for something that makes our journey meaningful? Like in terms of like, if we want to get somewhere, we want to do it in a way that we believe that the means also justify the ends, and we want to have.
What is the end? First thing, I get what you're saying. It's a very valid thing. But what is the end? Where do you want to reach? The means come later. First of all, one must know the ends, the purpose, the destination. What is it that you want? Do we know that?
I think on a general scale, like everyone's looking for happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah, but then nobody is just 1 second old right now. We are 20, 25, 40, 45. We have already tried so many means for happiness. And had we succeeded, we wouldn't still be trying. The means that we have now taken up, are they really any different from the means that we have already tried out? Dimensionally, fundamentally, the means are just the same as the ones already experimented with. We are just recycling the means in other names, in other forms, in other faces. If those means didn't succeed then, how will they succeed today? Wishful thinking does not take anyone anywhere. I ask, will you reach a new destination traveling down the same road again and again in more expensive vehicles maybe? With new chauffeurs, with new companions, in new clothes? On other days, the previous journey was made in the noon, and this time you travel in the midnight, hoping that you will reach somewhere else. But the road is the same. You will not reach anywhere else. Another disappointment lies in store. Do we know what we want? Happiness is a very vague word. What does that mean? We do not get happiness because we have never really reflected on happiness. If you reflect on happiness, you realize its nature. And that realization enables you to then get what we all are really hungry for. You're perfectly right. We all want happiness. But what kind of happiness? Happiness has many grades, many levels. It is only the highest level that would fulfill us. But the lower levels are easier to get. You don't have to pay up a heavy price. Secondly, we do not know that the lower levels are actually lower, because all the lower levels of happiness sell themselves in the market masquerading as the highest. Anybody who wants to sell something to you, does he not overstate the product or the service? That's how all the sellers of happiness survive in the market. One needs to be much more careful about his or her life. It's my one life. Shouldn't I be very cautious what my energy is going into, what my time is going into? Or can I just let life drift? If you just let life drift, then there is hardly any difference between man and animal. Animals have no purpose in life. The only happiness that an animal is looking for is grass, food, shelter, basic security, sex, procreation. If the happiness that we demand for life is much the same as what an animal demands, then we will remain unfulfilled. The animal has no need for fulfillment. We will have no scope for fulfillment. We will suffer. The animal does not.
Yeah, Thank you so much for your answer. I think the point about reflection really struck out to me, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.